We're live. Real Estate Exposed. Phil Tarrant, Momentum Media. Tom Panos, Real Estate Gym. The Real Estate Gym, where the best agents in Australia go after they've been at REB to work out what they do for each and every day. Tom, how you been, mate? What's going on?
I'm really good. It's our, I did a bit of an analysis of the last 3 months. So it's really interesting because June 26 is when the New South Wales or the Sydney lockdown started, and it went all the way to around October 11. So if you look at it, it was July, August, September. It was a quarter. It was a quarter and a little bit. I have to say to you, now that we're out of it, in comes Paulie Biller, one of the best agents I consider in Australia, Paul Biller. He's in the REB, he's number 39. He's got stiff competition, obviously. He actually, you know what Paul Biller said? I rang him up to congratulate him. I said, Nate, number 39. And you know what he said to me? Oh, you're first or you're nothing, isn't it? I said, not really. I said, you're in the top 100 agents of Australia. Anyway, Marcus Wise from Byron Bay. Good to see you. I think you're from Byron. Yes. Paulie Biller, Stan Pilatus, one of the great men in Canberra. But getting back to the quarter, Phil, it was, I would say, in the last decade of my life, if I had to go and pick a quarter and I had to analyze it on family, health, business, money, social as well. I'll touch that. I think it was close to the best quarter of the last 10, 15 years. I'm not joking, no question about it. I'm not sitting here, giving you my quarterly financial results. I'm not necessarily just talking about results. The results weren't bad. I mean, I have a business model that has revenue streams that are not purely reliant on me having to speak at events when there's no restrictions, right? But what it was the combination of everything. The ability to focus on your health, focus on your family, focus on projects. Projects are one of these things that you end up having to do always during appointments. You know what I mean, Phil? Like it's always, you've got a diary with appointments, yet in the back of your head, I've got this thing here that needs to be finished, right? Or I've got this thing here that needs work. So I was able to focus on projects and completed, obviously the big one for me was the Real Estate Gym app, right? And that to me was an eye-opener, because building an app to me reminds me a lot of what people say when you build a home. It goes over the budget. You don't know what you don't know. You constantly got to make decisions about information that you aren't an expert in. You've got some techie person that's asking you questions, and you're thinking to yourself, am I being taken for a ride here? That's there, right? Anyway, that was completed. And it was really, really good. Kids are going back to school in the next week or two, very short. Maddie's doing a HSC and then she's off. She's told me she's going to Canberra. But it wasn't a bad quarter. It wasn't a bad quarter at all, Phil, but it's been 4 days now. We've had 4 days outside of a lockdown. Can I ask you, what have you done between Monday and Thursday that you couldn't do for the last 3.5 months? What have you done? I'm curious.
Yeah, I went to a lunch yesterday. It was like an impromptu lunch. I was catching up with someone, and I just wanted to soften the environment, and I just went, hey, look, let's get something to eat. So I did that. So that was new. I've dropped my kids at school 4 days in a row now. They're back at school already. They go to an independent school, so they are able to make their own call to come back early on the basis. They did a survey of the whole school. They're in junior school, and something like 97 point something % of all of the families or the households connected with the kids at this school are vaccinated. It's like huge. So they just went, let's get the kids back to school. So
your kids vaccinated?
No.
Right.
But the households of the parents, like 97%
Right.
of the people are vaccinated, or some big number like that, right? This is in Mossman, so obviously a very compliant bunch of people out that way. So the kids are back to school. That's cool. That's different. What do they do different? Bad habit maybe. Going back, I actually worked in the office yesterday until about 8 o'clock, which used to be my norm, and then. During the COVID lockdown, I always made sure I was getting home at a more reasonable hour. So maybe it's the slipping back into old habits, Tom. Seeing that things are going back to normal, I'm going to try and avert that. So that's different again. What else have I done differently? I'm going to go back on Friday to my regular swim and meeting down in Manly. I'm allowed to do that again. So that happens on on Friday morning, which is cool.
Adam's saying not vaccinated. I think Adam is referring to his young kids. I think he's referring to his young kids, but I'm not going to ask you your vaccination status because I think that might
What's
be
the etiquette on that, mate? Let's have a chat about this because you see it on the social media now, people getting bullied because they're pretty vocal in their status. Most sort of, if they're anti-vaxxers. But now there's this etiquette of how do you approach whether or not someone's vaccinated? And the question is, Tom, and maybe it's the $1 million question: can you ask someone, "Are you vaccinated?" before they come into a house? Who knows? For open for inspection.
Well, look, for New South Wales anyway. Look, you ran a beautiful story in Victoria. Victoria, basically, it is illegal. It is illegal. The story was actually run today. It is illegal in Victoria to be in real estate and not be vaccinated. It's got here hefty fines headed for unvaccinated agents in Victoria. From the 15th of October, unvaccinated agents across Victoria could be hit with fines of more than $20,000 or $100,000 for their agency if they continue to work on site without the jab. So this is in Victoria, right? Heather Richardson, a partner from Callis Kennedy Lawyers, has said agency employees who refuse to be vaccinated simply won't be able to work on site after Friday. That's tomorrow, by the way. That is tomorrow, by the way. And I know that people have really, people have strong feelings. I had, you ran a story where I was referenced, where I basically said that you're going to find there are going to be challenges in the real estate industry if you're not vaccinated, because I am convinced that there will be buyers and sellers that are going to say, "Are you vaccinated?" Right? They're going to ask it. And then as an agent, you're going to have to say, "Yes, I am," or "No, I'm not." And I do think that there is going to be some vendors that are going to say, "Well, if you're not, thank you so much. You're probably not for us." Now, whether you don't like that or not, right, it might not be your view on it, but I can tell you, I already have clear evidence. I have agents. Lisa Novak's told me herself she's been asked the question. I've got lots of agents that tell me they're asked the question. So I just think to myself, and by the way, the 3 or 4 days, Phil, that I have been out and about to Westfield, to shops, I think it's hard being an unvaccinated person. Industry, the shop wouldn't allow me to go buy T-shirts unless I showed them my vaccination certificate. My local cafe said to me, "Tom, I'm sorry to ask you this. Are you vaccinated?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And they said, "Can we please have a look? We need to put it. It's our process now." So I think it is hard. Well, it's not like impossible, but I think you've got less choices.
But it's a moment in time as well, Tom. The pathway put together by, at least in New South Wales, is by the 1st of December, a lot of those restrictions are lifted. So they go from, 4 square meters to 2 square meters. From the 1st of December, I think you're allowed to travel outside of your LGA and even go regionally. If you're not vaccinated, you don't have to be vaccinated to go inside of a restaurant, etc. So it's only up until 1 December that these restrictions are in place. And I think the reason behind that is to get the rest of the people vaccinated so you can get sort of 80% vaccination. And then they're just going to go, you know what, if you're not vaccinated by that point, it's up to you. you're probably going to catch. Everyone's probably going to catch the virus at some point anyway. So they're probably more likely, they're unvaccinated, and probably more likely to get it first. And that's going to be the process moving forward. So I think this is really only with us for 2 weeks, this cycle. Same thing happened in the UK before it gets a lot easier. But I want to pick you up on a point, Tom. So the balanced scorecard approach of Tom Panos, first quarter of the FY22 financial year. How do you emulate that, mate? You know, I was already talking about going back into bad habits. How do you make sure you can capture the magic of that first quarter, bottle it and keep it, mate, so you maintain that moving forward?
Phil, you've got to, I think, and I haven't done this, you've got to write out a list for the quarter, 5 things that you will do more of, and 5 things you'll stop doing. Because I think you can fall into the trap, right, where you as default fall into the habits, the behaviors that may have been the things that were stopping you having the best quarter. So you've got to sit there and consciously say, hey, this is 5 things I've got to start doing more of. This is 5 things I've got to be doing less of. Make those decisions and then already have choices made before you fall into the trap. For instance, Phil, you know, there's an interesting one where we talk about you and last night, that 8 p.m. finish, right? You turn around and I've got to tell you, one day at 8 p.m. becomes 2 day at 8 p.m., becomes 3 day at 8 p.m. And then before you know it, we've got 2 to 3 days that are 8 p.m. Now, that's not a problem if that's not a worry to you. I get the impression that maybe it's not a worry. I mean, as a side issue, is it something that you don't care about or you like?
Working to 8 o'clock, I'd rather not.
Right. Yeah. So you turn around and you say, you know, these are the don'ts and these are the do's. But I will say to you, one of the advantages, but Phil, is that I noticed that sometimes it's a lot easier to stay on track than get on track. Does that make sense? So if you're already got momentum and you're up in the air and things are flowing, it's a lot easier to continue that than to actually be totally off track, or as I call it, the runway agent. The runway agent is the person that sits on a runway, never ever takes off, right? And, you know, they say the right stuff, they look the right stuff, but they never, ever, ever seem to actually take off, right? And that's a hard spot to be in. The momentum agent is normally up in the air. So hopefully, Phil, to answer that, I'm just going to capitalize of having a bit of momentum, you know, feeling good. A lot of it's got to do with 3 things, the building blocks: move well, eat well, sleep well. You get those 3 building blocks, right? Essentially, you've got good foundations to actually make good decisions and to put in lots of energy into meaningful tasks and be, you know, focused on the job. You don't sleep well, you don't eat well, and you don't exercise, things are just a little bit harder.
Yeah, I completely agree. And do you know what I apply to that also? And you mentioned it, Tom, around projects. Like, I love a project. And to me, projects are building blocks of achieving short-term goals, which turn into long-term goals. And if I don't have a project, I find myself projects. And I'm not talking about work here. I'm talking about outside of work. You need projects. You've got to be getting those perpetual wins in order to keep driving forward. And what the old adage is, people overestimate what they can achieve in a day or a week, and they underestimate what they can achieve in a year. If you can be project orientated and capture that whole, capture the mechanics of project and how you can use projects to get stuff done, you'd be surprised at what you can get going, you know, and get doing. And when people are lost and people are on the runway and people are gonna get some projects going and start chipping through them, you'll find your mental attitude will change overnight.
Now, Phil, I want to show you the Tom Panos approach to a comment that comes up on social media. Like, look at this comment here. And I know it's a joint show, but I just want to show you how I deal with this. We've got Michelle McKieran Fritz. She's typed away, unsubscribe, never asked to be subscribed. Okay. So, Michelle, let me explain to you how social media works. You don't actually subscribe. At some point, Michelle, you must have pressed the like button and followed the content. I have not friended you. Let's be very clear. If anything, it's come at your end. Now, the good news is, Michelle, when you don't want to consume any content on social media, what you do is you do not follow. That's the great thing. Each individual has a choice. So that's what you've got to do. Sorry, Phil.
Oh, I'll leave that one with you, mate. So I'm not going to go there, but
it's interesting because I sometimes get people, hey, I don't want to hear this. Well, don't watch it. It's not like so. For instance, I haven't gone off and actually spent. Adam's laughing at that. Michelle, you got to learn the social media protocol. You don't subscribe. I haven't bought you as a subscriber. We actually don't spend any money, trying to reach an audience. All I do is I deliver it to people that already have chosen to actually follow me. Sorry, Phil. But I will say,
mate, it's not Sunday night, Tom. Stop your ranting and actually deliver some good value to people. That's probably the reason why they want to unsubscribe.
See how I've got him. See how I've got him fired up. I've got you fired up now. Now, Phil, I want to answer that last question about the etiquette of people and are they vaxxed? I wasn't going to put you on the spot publicly, but one-on-one, it's stock standard for me, and I do it, and I'll say, "Excuse me, are you vaxxed?" And I know it's weird. I haven't had a negative response yet, Phil. I haven't had a negative. To be honest with you, I've had one person. Sorry, I've had one. No, it wasn't negative. I had one guy called Ben, who's a builder. He says, "Mate, no, I'm not vaxxed." And then he goes, "But I'm." Oh, that's right. He had a mask on. And I said, "You're being careful." He goes, "I'm not vaxxed." I said, "Oh, why aren't you vaxxed?" He goes, "I went so long. I just thought to myself," but he goes, "I'm putting a mask on because I've got young kids and I'm worried about my parents," right? So he's got whatever reasons. What do you think, Phil? Do you think it's an uncomfortable thing to say to someone, "Are you vaccinated?"
Oh, I think you got to put it in the context of perspective. Right now, it's a talking point. I'm always thinking about what tomorrow is going to be like. In a couple of months' time, no one's ever really going to talk about it. It's just going to become the norm. So I'm just not getting caught up or swept up with it. I'm just like, this thing all will play out. Don't overthink it. I think people like to make issues and they want drama in their lives and therefore they court it, covet it and go and chase it, or they're on the other way, which is I am, where you just go, look, it doesn't really matter. If someone's vaccinated or unvaccinated, that's their choice. That's their prerogative. I don't really even want to have a debate around it. I don't have the appetite for it. I just don't really care that much. I don't know if that's...
But Phil, there are going to be people that genuinely ask, not for the drama, but they're genuinely going to ask because if they're in an environment that could be even an internal environment, they're still mindful that COVID is transmissible whether you're vaccinated or not.
But that's fine. But COVID is transmissible, and COVID is in the community, Tom, and therefore people will be catching COVID. We've been in this pandemic now for 20 plus months, and I think everyone's now very clear. And you only need to look at the cases in Victoria today, Tom, 2,000+. It's not going away at any point in time. So, the sequential roadmap out of or living with COVID, what we know here in New South Wales, and we spoke about it, in 2 months' time, on 1 December, the government's telling us that it's irrelevant, really, whether you're vaccinated or not. The unvaccinated people will have the same freedoms largely of those people who are vaccinated. So, in 2 months' time, six weeks' time away, it's a moot point. So, I think what people need to do, and particularly within real estate, and there is challenges because obviously we just seen that story on realestatebusiness.com.au that unvaccinated agents won't be able to operate after this Friday. That's going to actually impact people's rice bowl. So what are they going to be doing over that next period of time? I don't know what the lockdown procedure is or the roadmap is in Victoria, specifically around, operating without vaccinations or with vaccinations. But that here in New South Wales, where we're operating right now, just trying to largely put it in the framework of you've got to fight the battles that are worth fighting. And I think the battles that aren't worth fighting, and I think vaccination debates are probably one of them, for the morale and the health of not only your business and the people inside of it. Yes, Tom, there's people who are going in all businesses, and every business owner I speak to, well, some people don't want to come back to the office because they're unsure of other people's vaccination status. Okay, noted. I get that. What we need to do, as in, I think largely most business owners or people involved in it, take your clues from what the government is doing and the regulations and the process they're putting around it, and use those to determine your decision making around it. Once you go off the grid and start making your own interpretation or perception towards it, or applying your own logic, or applying your own sentiments or values or whatever they are around it, is when you're going to find yourself in a position where you're in the grey. Try and operate with black and white as much as possible. That's the way I frame it. And that's my attitude and approach to it. Right or wrong, I'm sure there's people that's going to criticize that. But you know what? I'm keeping an eye on what I know and what is clear, and that's what the government mandates are. It's like operating in the rules inside and outside of everything else that happens in this great nation we live in.
I hope these cases go down in Melbourne, because you just reminded me I'm doing the auction on the block.
That's right.
In Melbourne on November 6th. I've cleared my diary and I'm going there, and I've got to meet all the rules that are needed, quarantining rules and auction licensing rules, and I just don't. I mean, it's still 2-3 weeks away. But what did you say? I didn't realise there was that many cases today. You just said there was
2,200. I think by memory. I skimmed it. But it's up there. Like it's definitely up there. Whereas Sydney, by and large, is on the way, or New South Wales on the way down. So again,
I don't think I should. Yeah, but Phil, logic would say if you're a person from Sydney going to Melbourne, that should be a big issue. If anything, it should be the person coming from Melbourne back to Sydney. Well, and that's not an issue anymore either, because New South Wales has moved past that. They're more worried about people being vaccinated or not.
Yeah. Look, what they're chasing New South Wales vaccination rates. I don't. I should know. I don't know the specifics around open homes now in Sydney. Tom, do you need to be vaccinated to view a home, or do you need to be vaccinated to actually show an open home? I imagine it would be.
Phil, it has changed so many times, and the reason why is that on the weekend, what happened is a public health order said that you did not have to be vaccinated, right? Then what happened is the COVID safety plan said that you'd have to be vaccinated. Then I've been told that they've turned it around, and even Lorna has come in here and she says REA says no. My understanding is that if you're in an in-room auction, evidence of vaccination is needed. If you're an open for inspection, a real estate agent, or an on-site auction, a real estate agent does not have to police whether people are vaccinated or not. That is my understanding. Again, I want to put it out there. Please don't take this as saying that Tom said on the REB show this. The reason is that there was the public health order and the COVID safety plan were not in sync, and Lorna is saying that is my understanding as well. She's agreed with that. And Tim McGibbon basically said that the government had actually confirmed to him that they had missed something. They'd missed the fact that the COVID plan and the public health order weren't in sync. So I would just say to people, keep doing your research there. But as I said to you off there, Phil, I'm going to, regardless, I'm continuing with a lot of the things that I picked up during COVID-19, including Zoom auctions. I mean, we can do on-site options this weekend. I'm doing Zoom. I've got 10, 15 scheduled, and I will continue doing Zoom at least till November.
What do you do? So you've got 12 auctions on a Saturday. The wooden spoon goes down on the last auction of the day. What's the first thing you do after that?
I go down to Newell Park, where I found a bunch of other guys who decided that they would use Newell Park, where the Bay Run is, and the cafe. That basically became our pit stop for the last 3-4 months. So there's a developer there. There's a guy that owns a big security company. I've had nothing to do with these people. That I just thought to myself, you know what? There's another reason why I ended up being in good quarter. From a social perspective, I was able to associate with people that weren't in the real estate industry.
You said there was a social component. So these are just people outside of your immediate sphere of influence or your professional life where you just made some new friends.
Yeah, and it's great, Phil, because they don't sit there and they don't say to me, "Oh, Tom, what's a great script for this?" Or, "Tom, what's this?" They talk to me about stuff that I would have spoken to with my mates when I was in year 12 at high school, right? Stuff that actually makes no sense but makes you laugh, right? And then we would, and then when we were allowed to, we started training together in the park there, just doing, I wouldn't even call it a heavy session. And then Billy, actually his name's Billy. He's Frank Pulatua, Joe Pulatua's brother that played for South Sydney and Penrith. He's the brother of these two footy players, a Samoan guy that runs a big security business. We then used to pull out these beautiful drinks called Canadian Dry Zeros. There's no sugar. Do you like a Canadian Dry, Phil?
Oh, yeah, very occasionally. It depends. Maybe at the end of a session where I've just done on beer, mate. Have you got a WhatsApp group with these guys now? You're sort of I'll meet you down at
a text group, and all they do is they send absolute garbage. I'll even tell you what the name of it here. It's called here. The guy set it up. The Lockdown Losers.
I was going to say Mill Park Misfits is probably what I'd call it, but Lockdown Losers is just as good.
Yeah, lockdown losers.
So, Tom, tell me about this. And
By the way, it includes the Mayor of Canada Bay. The Mayor of Canada Bay is in that group as well.
The Mayor of Canada Bay. Does he play water polo?
I'm not quite sure if he plays water polo. His name is Angelo. Actually, they just sent me a photo there. They're making fun of him. This just came out today. The Mayor.
Very good.
I think
talk to me about the importance, Tom. Talk to me about the importance of making new friends outside of your peer group. And you probably, I don't know if you remember this, Tom. There was this famous Sydney Morning Herald advert where there was a whole bunch of people standing around. There's a guy walking around with a tape measure, just like measuring people up, and essentially they were implying that while everyone else was having fun, this guy was an undertaker and he couldn't get beyond just always thinking of an undertaker who was like measuring up people for their next coffin. You must find it quite refreshing not having to knock around property people asking you questions and having to go, "Oh, Tom, what's happening here? What's happening here?" When people know you're in property, they'll always ask you, "Hey, where should I buy?" or "Is this a good value?" or whatever. It must be nice to be with people who don't really know or get it. The importance of that is key, I think, for people.
Phil, it's made me realize that if your social life consists of work colleagues and work acquaintances, it becomes a very one-dimensional social life, right? And I know, and coming from the corporate world, having worked for News Corp for so many years, that's the mayor's name there. Thank you, Lucas, Mayor Angelo Sarikas, right? Thank you so much.
Different person. Yeah.
So what actually happens is, Phil, and this is something I noticed when I was at News Corp, your whole social life revolves around your corporate friend. You drink with them, you hang out with them, and before you know it, it becomes one. Work and personal becomes one. I think you become very one-dimensional. I think to have people that work outside of your work outside of your industry, is really, really good because it helps you understand. It helps you understand how other people think. I got to tell you, in real estate, we can really begin to think that the world revolves around us. We overestimate the importance that we have in the scheme of things because we're not sort of getting a taste sample of what else is happening. One of the guys owns the beautiful Dynasty restaurant, the Chinese restaurant at Canterbury Leeds Club. It's really good to understand what are the things that go through, a person that's got that. Another person owns a big motor mechanic. And it's really interesting. I mean, I always thought to myself, motor mechanics feel. I'd have a thing with motor mechanics. You'd go over there and they'd look at your car and they'd say, "Oh, wow, it's the head gasket." Every time I'd hear the head gasket, I think, "Man, that just means money, right?" It wasn't normally any gasket. It's the head gasket, right? Anyway, but Phil, as we're talking, we've got confirmation lockdown over in the ACT in 9 hours. Says one of our Facebook users, right?
Wow, there we go. Newsflash. It all happens here.
Auctions tomorrow on site, opens on the 29th. Now, I'm not quite sure where that is. Adam is talking about here, outside of entry, gives us another perspective of life and sales. I'm curious, Phil, have you got friends outside of media?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've still got a lot of childhood friends who I went to school with. Just people I've met along the way, from all walks of life. I definitely don't live inside the bubble that is my profession. To be honest with you, Tom, I don't even know what my profession is. But yeah, absolutely, mate. Very diverse, and I like it that way. It's good. It's also good. You're mentioning all those people. If you've got what I found, I learned this when I was really young. You need to know all those people in life. It's so important. You need a good mechanic. You need to know a good builder. You need to know a good electrician. You need to know the local mayor. You need to know the bloke that owns the local Chinese restaurant. Mate, all this stuff is absolutely important. You should be the king of, where do you live? Croydon's Croydon way, king of Croydon, maybe, or something. Here we go. The king of Haberfield. Everything you do should be done within that group, mate. It's the way it works out. It should be that way.
I'm going to have to watch that because there's a guy by the name of Michael Tringali, who I think is in the REB Top 100, the McGrath agent in my area, who brands himself as Mr. Haberfield.
Okay.
Quite. By the way, Phil, quite clever to everyone that's watching. If you want to talk about someone that intelligently uses a community to get his brand out there, look at what he's done. What he did is he sent me a text message. This is a great story. He sent me a text message. "Are you part of the $7 million club? Call me to find out, Michael Tringali," with a sold by sign outside a property. Very intelligent. So I contacted him. I said, "Mate, I just got this text message." He said, "As you can see, I sold that property for $7,020,000. And I said, "Wow, tell me a little bit about it." And he goes, "Yeah." And then I go, "Oh," I said, "It's great. Thank you for letting me know." I said, "Michael," I said, out of curiosity, more of a training question, how many people did you send that out to?" He said, 50, the 50 ambassadors for me. I said, "How do you make it as an ambassador for you?" He said, "Oh, it's very simple. If I know that you've got influence and other people will listen to you, you're on the list because you're going to tell 50 people who will tell 50 people who will tell 50 people. So every time I've got something that I want to get out there," he goes, "I put it on that list." I said, "You're making me sound like I'm a gossiper." He goes, "Well, call it what you like. All I know is that you are going to get the message out there." And it is a very important strategy to work your community intelligently.
Well, you know what, mate? That's as old as humans have been communicating, right? You tell someone, and that person tells someone, et cetera, et cetera. It's where the you've heard of the term furphy, right? Now it's a beer, but furphy's being people just gossiping, sharing, and then some guy's idea or some girl's idea becomes a law, and that's what the norm is. Furphy the origin of it is during the First World War. I think the water truck or the tea cart had Furphy on the side of it, so it's where everyone used to stand around and swap notes and brag and tell whatever, which therefore turned into rumours and therefore Furphy's, mate. It's exactly the same logic as what you're just talking about there. I don't get that list. I'm not on that list, mate. I mustn't be that important. You're one of the top 50 real estate influencers. Maybe there's a new list for RED.
I wouldn't take that personally, Phil, because he does it because I'm in his core area. And
there you go.
That's what it's all about. It's in the core area. He's using his core area people. Now, before we leave today, Phil, I wanted to ask you, your business partner, Alex Whitlock, interviewed or had a conversation with the treasurer, Josh Frydenberg. I mean, how fortunate are you guys that you're able to actually, be talking to people who've got, if you talk about influence, you can't get more influential than the treasurer. And later on this afternoon, you're actually sending it out to all the REB subscribers. What can you, I mean, people are going to read it, but in a nutshell, what was the conversation about with Alex?
Yeah, well, people listen to it, so it's an exclusive interview with the treasurer, and it was good. He wanted to come on and have a chat with Alex. So Alex within Momentum Media here looks after the sort of mortgage portfolio products. He's been doing that for many years. Quite involved in the development of the mortgage industry, and the treasurer wanted to come and have a yarn about, what the world looks like for mortgage brokers moving forward, but expanded out quite a lot beyond that around, COVID recovery and all the different factors which are going to influence Australia's growth moving forward. You've probably seen some of the numbers or commentary coming out recently around the most recent quarter in GDP. They were sort of slated before this current lockdown at sort of 2% sort of growth. That's coming down. It's probably going to be -2, at least 3. But the treasurer is optimistic and he's very bullish about economic growth. But his key message was, hey, look, we can't be complacent about this. There's still a lot of water under the bridge in relation to the COVID-19. And Alex and the treasurer spoke just as New South Wales is coming out of lockdown. So a very wide-reaching conversation. It's really good. I've listened to it. They talk about immigration. They talk a lot about sort of economic recovery and what the world looks like for COVID, or what the world looks like for Australia moving forward. They spoke a lot about this roadmap, but within the context of this readership and real estate, which is where it was mainly focused, about the importance of competition inside of mortgages and how that's going to champion ongoing wealth creation opportunities for Australians. The very important role played by mortgage brokers. Mate, they spoke about everything from JobKeeper and stimulus, about getting opening up Australia for migration again. One of the key things I took from it, which was a real headline for me, and no doubt for the real estate sector, whether they're professionals operating inside of real estate or for property investors or owner occupiers, he fired a pretty good sort of warning shot at the Labor government in relation to negative gearing. And he called it, I believe, I'll get the language right, Labor's war on aspiration, which was obviously targeting those property taxes, which might slow down, might change the way in which Australians invest in properties. So they had a really good chat about that. I'll tune into it. It's probably coming out in about an hour's time. Be landing in everyone's inbox, but also on the social media. So tune into it. It's really good. It's a real privilege for us at Momentum Media, Alex in particular, to be able to chat with the treasurer at a time when New South Wales is really now emerging from this lockdown. There is other states still with some way to go, but he spoke at length about the COVID response and the realities, the realities of operating through COVID. He said in the particular chat, he never thought, becoming treasurer, that he would be dealing with that. He was sort of down the pathway of delivering the first sort of positive sort of surplus in the budget, and obviously COVID turned everything on the head. So he shared some of his own sort of experience navigating that, and something that was thrown in like all Australians. No one wanted COVID, expected COVID, but it's how well, I think, individually we've been able to react to it. As a collective, we've been able to react to it. And we've spoken about it a lot on this Real Estate Exposed, but initially, Tom, what's making headlines, I think me and you largely agree that the government did a pretty good job navigating that first round of COVID and that government stimulus and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, they spoke all about that. It's really worth the listen, mate.
Okay, so that's on the which podcast is that on?
It'll be on Real Estate Business. So if you just go to Real Estate Business, click on podcast, you can tune into it there, or on the REB podcast channel where people listen to this. Secrets of Top 100 Agents. Just search Real Estate Business on any podcast player. You'll be able to track it down.
All right, Phil, thank you so much. And I agree with you 100%. You know, the government's done a pretty, listen, just the fact that you can have a vaccination certificate on your mobile phone and that's all, you know, pretty robust. I mean, there's so many things you turn around and say with all the chaos that's happened, and you look at, you know, we're biased because we're in Sydney at the moment, and you look at what's going on. As far as I'm concerned, things are full. I got mates sending me text messages. They're drinking espresso martinis in the city today. They look like they're having a fantastic time. You know, yoga is full. Got to book into a space there. The gyms are full. Anytime Fitness is full. Orange Theory is full. I'm going out to Hurricanes tonight for dinner. Man, it's the show's on. You know, as Josh Frydenberg, I think, said, Australia, we're open for business, right? So happy days. Phil, fantastic. Seeing you. Look forward. I'm about to go into a coaching session with Louise Barton. It's my 3:00 session, and she is so keen for the Women's Award night. She's nominated.
Excellent. Hey, you're coming along to that, Tom? I've got a seat there next to me. You know,
yes, I'd love to be sitting next to you, Phil, because you make me laugh. I'd love to be sitting next to you, and I'd love to have a few glasses of red wine with you. So when is the date again? 15th, isn't it?
It's thereabouts. Check out realestatebusiness.com.au, mate. I should know. Thereabouts. I know it's in my calendar. There you go. There's some good marketing. You see, I'm a journalist, mate. I should be on that.
Yeah, I'm just having a look here. No, I don't have it in my diary because it was moved from October. I remember that. It was moved from October. But what I do know is it's at Star City. I know that. And it's the REB Women, isn't it?
Yeah, Women in Real Estate Awards. And if you just give me 1 second, I will tell you exactly when it's on. I should really be prepared. Again, I'm sure you got a lesson for this.
You there, Phil? You're frozen. Oh, what a bummer. Right at the end of the podcast. But guys and girls, what I will do right now, REB Women in Real Estate Awards. See if it comes up here, guys and girls. Let's have a look here, gang. See if I can bring it up, and then I will let you guys go. Let's have a look here. We got the finalist there. We got the finalist. He has disappeared. My friends. I am letting you know. I will find out when the awards, and we'll talk about it next week. Anyway, guys and girls, I'm going to let you go. Signing off.